things to think about, and that should have been part of the discussion, hopefully during the interview, and that should also be referred to in the offer when you see it, are some of these logistical issues. Moving expenses. If you're moving from Toronto to Whitehorse, you've got some expenses. If you're moving from Stuttgart to Toronto, you'll also have considerable expenses. Those need to be referred to in the offer. Again, there may be some limits on what the universities are prepared to place on those. But you need to ask about those before you hire the moving firm, before you buy the plane ticket, whatever the case may be. Make sure it's there. You should also ask about assistance with accommodation, connecting to rental or real estate agencies. You should ask about childcare, whether the university provides childcare through its own on-campus service, whether the university can assist with access to childcare facilities in the city, the town, wherever, and similarly with schooling. Ask those sorts of questions. You're not going to find some of these pieces, these latter pieces, in the offer itself, but you should find the first ones, the moving expenses. You may find a reference to assistance with accommodation. You won't find provide accommodation, I don't think, but you may find provide assistance with. And these other discussions, I would hope, would have been the sorts of things that you would have discussed during the interview process with the committee. Some universities have provision for spousal or partner hiring, and if you have negotiated that and raised that, that should be in the offer as well, or at least some reference to it. It may be done in a separate letter in some cases, but you want to know where they are with that process. So this is something that you will have raised at the end of the interview process, potentially. Certainly our collective agreement requires it to be part of the hiring process and not an after-the-fact event. But you should expect that the offer is addressing that issue if you have a spouse or a partner for whom employment is something that the university is going to do and provide in some way, shape or form. So there's a number of these things that I would expect to see in the offer itself. One other component there that I think is worth noting is that many of these are covered in detail in collective agreements and will tie the hands of the university, and you need to be sensitive to this. It may be difficult and actually ultimately problematic to negotiate a special deal at the end of the day. So you want to really find a way to ensure that what you are doing fits. In many cases, faculty associations and human resource departments watch hiring processes diligently and review negotiations, including after the fact. So I know at Dalhousie, faculty association sends me and our association board committee a long list of their review of hirings over the previous 6 months, and we'll ask questions. And this is a good thing, by the way. We want to make sure that we do have equitable hiring processes. In some cases, these elements of negotiations are covered under what I would define as management rights in a collective agreement. Effectively, the employer, the university, the administration is acting as the employer. The employer will have the ability under a collective agreement to assert its management right to hire, and that's very important. Faculty associations will have compensatory roles, obviously, in the selection of candidates and in the review of the hiring process. But the university administration is primarily responsible for hiring, even though there are other inputs from faculty associations and others. And even if there isn't a faculty association, there is still a strong expectation for internal equity over and above the significant equity provisions that are required by human rights and employment equity, employment standards legislation in all Canadian provinces. Okay. Now, one of the other comments I'd make here in terms of the offer is the variety of offers. Some are very direct. We are offering you a position as, please sign here. Others, and I hate to say it, my own university has this very convoluted letter in which I write to the candidate and I, dear Dr. So-and-so, I'm delighted to advise you that I have recommended to the President that you be appointed to the position of. Come on in, please. And candidates looking at this, and indeed when I looked at this letter the first time stepping into this particular dean's office, I said, this is an entirely conditional piece of writing. This doesn't say I'm offering you the position. It says I'm recommending to the president. I don't know what the president's going to do. The president may say, oh, we don't like this candidate. It's going to happen. So I'm actually actively working internally at the moment to change that language so it is more direct and more obvious. I had a candidate last August who said, I got this letter from you, so when will I expect to actually receive the offer? And I had complete agreement with their interpretation. So bear in mind that you may have to ask some questions. You may have to confirm and say, am I clear that this is the offer? Now I hope that in most cases that's not. I hope that letters of offer are very clear. You know, we are offering you the position of X. Please reply by date Y. And then in between there are all these other important pieces that are there. To just finish up this comments on the offer by noting that the easiest offers to manage are, of course, the ones where the offer covers off all the bases, where you see everything you need to see, where I think that we have provided you with the best possible offer, the best reflection of your academic qualification and your experience, a competitive salary, and all those sorts of things. And that's important because many things become set in place at that point. Such as longer-term teaching assignments, salary, placement on the scale, position in the pension plan, those sorts of things. So it's important in the offer to ask about those sorts of components.